Hello and welcome to another Seismic Cinema podcast. I'm joined here by Paul.
Hi there, guys. How you doing?
Only joking, it's not Paul. Paul, unfortunately, he had a bit of an issue with the flu powder, did he?
Yeah, that's right. He didn't pronounce it correctly. He said diagonally, and now he's nowhere to be found.
So hopefully we get Paul back for next week's podcast. I've instead got a very special guest. We've got the one and only Andrew Strachan from the Strachan podcast. How are we? I almost called you
What's
Andrew.
happening, Trips? How you doing? I know, Matt Andrews. I don't even think I've revealed that on the podcast yet. That's an exclusive. Probably exclusive to some people that know me as well. I'm sure some people out there still call me Strachan and don't know my first name.
I'm used to your name. I'm used to your name being Andrew Strachan, but I actually forgot that was your name until I said it there. There you
Oh, it always happens, man. Don't worry.
go. Okay, so this is the first of what's going to become a weekly series. We've already done a ranking of the Book of Boba Fett chapters, but each week, myself and Paul are going to alternate in choosing a topic to rank. And this week, we decided to go really niche and rank the live action Harry Potter movies. I don't think that's something
Very
that's been done.
excited.
I don't think that's something that's been done before. So before we get into ranking them, we had a bit of a discussion, Strachan, didn't we, just about whether it was our favourite films or whether it was like the best films. But it's a bit of
Mhm.
a mixture of the two.
I've definitely put some personal feelings into my top films. I definitely do acknowledge when certain things in terms of storytelling are good and bad, and a lot of my personal bias comes down to that anyway. But there are certain placements that I've kind of slightly put higher than maybe if you were just looking at a certain critical eye, just based on personal preference. So
Yeah,
it's a little
I
bit
think
of a mix.
I think it's important that we maybe just mention our Harry Potter stories because obviously you get the film buffs, you get the movie and film people, you get the people that hate the
Mm.
movies just like the books. Where do you kind of land on that scale?
So I actually have read all the books. One of the few book series I've actually read. Like for example, I'm a massive Lord of the Rings fan, but I've not read the books as a whole because they're just so long. But I was lucky enough to grow up with Harry Potter. I was actually into Harry Potter before the movies came out. My mum bought me the Philosopher's Stone and used to read it to me at night. And then
Oh,
I know how cute. So grown up with the Harry Potter books, and then the films came out. I remember queuing up to get Deathly Hallows and everything. So
mm,
my fandom has veered towards other franchises in the future, but definitely was and still am a huge Harry Potter fan.
yeah. My story is actually quite an interesting one. We got read it in primary five, I think it was, and it
Mm-hmm.
was some people were really massive Potterheads even at that stage. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember being a wee bit. I wasn't a cool kid, so I don't know why I was like this, but I was a wee bit like, oh yeah, aye, that's not cool to like Harry Potter. And then I think it was primary six. We went on a school trip to the local cinema, and we saw Philosopher's
Mm-hmm.
Stone. And from seeing the film, I was absolutely hooked. My sister had
Yeah.
the first four books. I binged them, and then I saw every film after it came out. After that, I
Mm-hmm.
would say I'm more of a fan in the books than the films, but that doesn't mean I
Mm-hmm.
don't enjoy a lot of aspects of the films.
Yeah. It is quite nice how the films aren't canon. So if they do make changes and things like that, or like there's certain things that you don't like, it's not as like a big a deal. Like I know that some
Mm.
people get really wound up about changes in the MCU, for example, that are different to the comics,
Yeah,
and because it's canon for the MCU, it's like really annoying. But the good thing is with Harry Potter, because it's not canon, if there is a little change, you can just be like, well, it's not canon. The real story is the book, so
mm.
it's not a big deal change. And I think sometimes as well there are positive changes in the movies as
Yeah,
well compared to the books, but
definitely.
there definitely are things that, and we'll get that into some of my rankings. There's definitely some movies where things are maybe left out or changed that
Mm.
really influenced how I feel about the movies.
But what's interesting when you read the books, I automatically fill in the gaps because I know what happens. Whereas for some
Yeah.
people who haven't read the books, they must be like, what is actually going on here?
Yeah. Aye, and it's nice as well. There'll be certain little references sometimes and things like that where you'll pick up on it that maybe the average viewer wouldn't as well. Like
Yeah.
maybe an Easter egg or something like that. But yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm excited to get started then, and it's Seismic Cinema. What's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? Policy.
No idea.
The visitor goes first.
Right. Awesome.
So we're going to rank from 8 to 1. What's the best thing to do? Because it can be really easy to just start shouting people down. See if we just say what our choice is, and then just get into it. That's probably the best way to do it.
That'll be interesting, especially when Paul said what his top ranked movie was. So I was thinking maybe if he was on tonight, there could have been a scrap, because number 8 I have The Chamber of Secrets.
Okay. My 8th, and it's by quite a distance, is The Half-Blood Prince.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. I don't blame you for that, because I definitely know it's not everybody's favourite. But aye, that's interesting. You'll see where I've placed that myself.
Do you want to start then? Just Chamber of Secrets. Why have you put it in 8th position?
Sure. So for me, I mean, I'll start off with the things that are good. So as usual with the Harry Potter movies, the CGI, especially for this time, was brilliant. Dobby looks really good. Dobby, however, annoys the living hell out of me. I don't know what it is, if it's his voice or whatever. I just find him really annoying in this movie anyway.
Do you remember my Dobby impression?
Yes, I remember all your impressions.
Maybe do it later
on. But yeah, so Dobby, not my favourite character. Found him really, really jarring. But like I said, he looks really good in the CGI. Another good thing is, compared to the first movie, the acting of the child actors improves immensely. There's quite good humour with characters like Gilderoy Lockhart and stuff like that, and the ending fight is class. Like, if you have a big monster and getting beaten by a sword in a fantasy movie, like, I'm sold. But I just feel like the plot of this movie is absolutely insane. For one thing that comes to my head straight away is the plan to go and see Aragog, the evil massive spider. They're like, oh, they say that he's a monster. Let's go and ask him if he's really evil. Let's go. And then they go, so Aragog, are you an evil monster? No, I'm not. But by the way, my kids are going to eat you now. So I didn't do that, but you're going to die. So I thought that was really silly. Also, the fact that all the children can see that Gilderoy Lockhart is a Diddy and Dumbledore, the most powerful wizard of the time, very wise, can't, I thought was weird. But I mean, he's a great character.
I've actually got a wee bit of insight on that thing you just said.
Right, on you go.
Apparently, Dumbledore appointed Lockhart to show Harry the downfalls of letting fame go to your head. I don't know how true that is, but if it is true, it's quite interesting.
I mean, that is what's quite good about these like expanded universes. There normally is, if there's anything that somebody points out and says that's silly, there's always normally some sort of great explanation to have for it. But just in general, I thought that was pretty weird. And then also, what went through J.K. Rowling's head with this one, I thought, was the way she goes, you know what, Harry Potter 1 was great. How can we make it better? I know, wizard racism. And she brings in like the mudblood stuff and all that.
I thought that really added to the story, because it does it does span the kind of whole series, I suppose.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, I think it is a good tool for world building. I just thought the fact that they managed to teach a snake to be racist was kind of interesting. And also as well, the fact that it managed to slither through the pipes, I was like, how big are wizard poops that snakes can fit through these pipes? How does it come out of the toilet bowl? Also, it's ginormous. How did they not see it? Like, but that's just my like really nitpicky brain. But and also the other thing as well is the plan that Voldemort had for the Horcrux. He seemed a bit careless with this Horcrux compared to the others. Like, I'll just give it to Lucius, and he can decide what to do with it. And then 12 years later, he decides to give it to Ginny Weasley, who is like comes from probably the most prolific Gryffindor family of all. It was like, why not give it to some sort of Slytherin kid who will maybe be on board with being possessed by Voldemort? But I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just that's my main gripes with it, because the Harry Potter is one of the series where I do think it's one of the more solid series in terms of like I enjoy every movie. There's some series that I maybe love more, but have some movies in it that really like disappointed me. Whereas I have fun with every Harry Potter movie, so just a bit of a messy plot that kind of lets it down a little bit for me if you're going to start ranking it. But other than that, it's still a fun movie for me.
Cool. I would say I enjoy the majority of the Harry Potter films. I don't really enjoy my number 8.
Wow, okay.
It's got decent bits of humour, and the character relationships, like Ron going out with Lavender's quite entertaining, etc. I just one of the big criticisms of this film is the literal dark tone, and that you can't really see what's happening a lot of the time.
Yeah, I do get that.
And not to be the book guy, but they took so much good stuff out of it. Like there's meant to be like a big battle in Hogwarts between like the Death Eaters and like the Order of the Phoenix and Dumbledore's army. They take that out and they basically just have Bellatrix run through the Great Hall smashing things.
Yeah.
So they take all that out, and they also take out a few of I know you don't want a full movie of Voldemort's memories, but they take out like one of the most important ones. It's like his grandpa's house, and it's where one of the Horcrux originates from.
Yeah.
And they also added in that stupid scene where they set the burrow on fire.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of it, and there's the shoelace scene as well. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of Half-Blood Prince.
Yeah. No, I can definitely see why people don't like Half-Blood Prince. There's also like a really silly plot element in that as well. I'll maybe come into that later on, but when I explain it. But the Half-Blood Prince for me is one of the movies where I have just a personal liking for it, but I can understand why people don't like it for those reasons. But yeah, the thing with Dumbledore's death and the Battle of Hogwarts, like being totally played down from compared to the books, that was really disappointing for me when I watched it. I totally understand people's gripes with that stuff.
No Dumbledore funeral either.
Yeah, I know. Just I don't know. Everyone kind of stood outside and cried for a bit.
Yeah.
And then that was it. But it was a little bit tonally dissonant at times as well. Like there was times where it was a really dark movie, and then other times where it was really silly. But I do think there's just a lot of. We'll come on to that when it comes to my time to rank it.
Cool. We'll get on to number 7 now, which is the most magically powerful number, and J.K. Rowling's favourite number in the series, with the 7 Weasley siblings and the 7 players on the Quidditch team. So
and 7 Horcruxes, I believe.
Yep. Well, that's debatable.
Oh yeah, I suppose Let's not get into that. That's a potential tangent.
Right. Number 7. What was your number 7?
So number 7 for me was Goblet of Fire.
Okay. Number 7 for me, definitely Hallows Part 2.
Oh wow! Okay. Very interesting.
I've got reasons. I'm not as big of a fan of the latter films, I'll be honest, compared to the earlier ones. But anyway.
Yeah.
So, what's your choices then reasons for choosing Goblet of Fire?
So, similar to your things about Half-Blood Prince leaving things out, I think this movie has a lot of wasted potential. For example, I think they could have shown more of the Triwizard Tournament. Like, for example, not seeing any of the other contestants' attempts to get the egg from the dragon in the first challenge. Like, I think that could have been cool. Not showing any of the Quidditch World Cup game at all, because I remember going to that, like, oh, that'd be really cool to see that. And that wasn't in it at all. I think another thing as well, and I'm not sure if this was done in the books, but I think the story of Cedric dying could have been a lot more compelling. Like, see how Ron and Harry's relationship becomes really strained. I think if you got him and Cedric and Harry a lot closer during that time, it could have really made Cedric's death a lot more impactful. So I just thought that was a little bit disappointing. And then also I feel like Mad Eye Moody's characterization is totally wasted. You get a lot of good characterization built up from him through, like the whole thing where he's kind of like a firm but fair teacher.
Yeah.
And then because you find out that's not even Mad Eye Moody, it's like, well, I don't even know this guy anymore. Like,
Yeah.
so it kind of ruins, the impact from him as well. I watched a video. I think I mentioned this previously. A guy called Cosmonaut Variety Hour.
Okay.
He suggested that maybe J.K. Rowling likes to like kind of bring in new antagonists all the time, and I think it would have been more effective if you try and keep, maybe a few more people more regular in it. Like, see, for example, if you made like Peter Pettigrew or somebody the antagonist in this movie, it could have been better for him to kind of build him
Yeah.
up a little bit more. Just to keep
Like,
throwing in random villains.
I think it all stems back to the fact that Voldemort put a curse on the Defense Against the Dark Arts job, so by design there was going to be a different teacher every year.
Yeah, I get that. I just feel like say for example, somebody like Bellatrix Lestrange is popular and a much more effective sort of henchman to Voldemort because she is, more present, and same with Lucius.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you maybe could have done something like that, but still, again, like I said, there's all these movies are entertaining. Like, I love the scene in the graveyard when Voldemort comes back. I remember like absolutely loving that scene when I first went to see it. Great performance from Daniel Radcliffe in that scene as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, a cool tournament and a fantasy thing, again, you can't really go wrong with that. So it has a lot of good moments in it. Just feel like so much wasted potential with that movie for me. That's why it's more of a personal preference as to why it's lower on the list, I would say.
Some of the memes are brilliant about Goblet of Fire, just like the audience watching the tasks and they're just staring at the top of the water for an hour.
I know.
Staring at the hedge.
Yeah. I know. It kind of reminds me of like what I imagine watching Formula One would be like. Imagine just sitting at one area of the track for ages and you're just waiting for the car to come past. Like, come on. And then you go, film, and you're like, yes. And then you're like, right, okay, I've got to wait for them to come back round again. Kind of reminds me
Why
of
could
that.
they not have just moved the stands like above the hedge, or like made the water translucent so that you can see through it? I don't know. There's surely a way around that.
Yeah, I know. They seem like they're very gifted at magic, but maybe not the best like logical thinkers at times.
Yeah. Right, Deathly Hallows Part 2. I think both Deathly Hallows bits suffer a wee bit from the fact they split it into two films. I'm not a fan of how they portrayed the Battle of Hogwarts. How I'd built it up in my head from reading the books, I thought it was quite disappointing. They also basically killed Fred Weasley off screen. You see like a very brief him falling back, but that's such a big bit in the book because Percy comes back into the fray. They make up and then he dies 2 seconds later. It's absolutely heartbreaking, but it's just really underplayed in the film. And also the end bit in the book, obviously Harry and Voldemort have this big battle in the Great Hall, and everyone's watching and they're doing the big speech. But in this one, basically, it's Harry and Voldemort in an empty courtyard, and he like crumbles into like dust.
Yeah.
And also the bit where Harry and Voldemort hug each other and jump off the building. That's just stupid. So yeah, I've got my issues. I don't think it was a great conclusion to a great movie series personally.
I never thought about the Percy and Fred thing, and especially considering they'd drawn the movie out, drawn the book out into two movies, because I actually personally felt like they did that a little bit better compared to some other series that have done that. Like, for example, I think I said before, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. They did with The Hobbit, which is a little book. They stretched that out into three movies, and added in loads of extra stuff that they really didn't need to add. So I thought that was actually an example of a better movie that done that. So, but like, say for example, that thing you said about Percy and Fred, like with the amount of time that they had, because they stretched it into two movies, like they easily could have done that, and it could have been really compelling. So
Percy's in the film, and they show Fred falling back. They just didn't make it, and like Lupin and Tonks as well. That you just see them, two big characters, particularly Lupin. You just see them lying on the ground. You don't actually see. To be fair, you don't actually see their death in the book either. But I don't know. I just feel like I don't know. I think to me it was disappointing. That's just my take.
Aye, that's the thing. Sometimes the movie isn't necessarily not entertaining. It's just not what you expected it from based on the books. That's the problem with being a fan of the books and the movies. But no, it might change my perspective a little bit for future.
Yeah. So Half Blood Prince and Death Hours Part 2, they were the two I found them quite easily to place near the bottom. What's your sixth position then?
So my sixth is Philosopher's Stone.
Okay.
So I can again, similar to you, like all these movies now, we're all pretty solid. It's kind of, there's not much between them. The only reason why I would place this lower than the rest is probably just because I don't come back to it as much, just because I find it a little bit jarring now that I'm older. It is quite a childish movie still, but I do think that they nailed the tone perfectly, especially for where I was at the time in my life, like growing up with the movies. Like it was like, it felt like the age, or like how it would feel if you were that age going into that world, like so magical and mystical. The
felt real,
didn't
it? Like this could actually happen.
Yeah. And also what I really like as well is they were really smart with what they done with Harry. Well, J.K. Rowling was, like, obviously having him put into a situation where he's like really down on his luck and treated horribly by his adopted family. Like, you're automatically connecting with Harry straight away there. And then the fact that he's new to this world, like you're seeing the world through his eyes as well. So he's kind of displaying the emotion that you're expected to feel when you see Diagon Alley opening up, for example. And also, because he doesn't know anything about the world, he's naturally going to be asking loads of questions. So when they're doing exposition, it doesn't feel laborious. Like, it feels natural because he doesn't know anything. So I think that's really smart.
That's definitely true.
Also, like, I want to give a shout out to Alan Rickman in this particular movie, just because I think his portrayal of Snape is potentially my favourite portrayal of anyone. I think he's just incredible. And I think, like, just the scene when he's first in his class, and he's like, Harry Potter, our new celebrity. And he's like
very bat-like with his cloak, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
The way he wraps around himself.
Yeah, he is kind of like a bit like Batman, but he's so good in that role. And also, the plot is very simple. It is just a nice kind of like mystery. It's not a murder mystery, but it's kind of mystery. We've got to kind of sort of find out what's going on, and it's got a nice simple twist. And that's what I like about it, because I do feel like my biggest criticism of J.K. Rowling is, I think sometimes, like, say for example with Chamber of Secrets there, like, she tries to make things, well, maybe not Chamber of Secrets, but in future ones, she tries to make things so unnecessarily complicated. It's like she thinks, if I make the story really complex, it's a better story. Whereas I don't think she needs to do that. I think she's incredible at the world that she's created. She's built an incredible world. But I do think sometimes her plots are a bit wild. But I think that she either nails it or it's mental. And I think in this movie she nailed it. The only thing, like I said when I was referencing Chamber of Secrets, is the acting from the three child actors, which, again, when you're going to get 12-year-old actors, especially ones that haven't got training or anything, they're not going to be amazing. And that is really noticeable, especially when they've not got adult actors to bounce off of. Like, you can just tell that they're kind of getting direction, and like, it's just not the best acting. But like I said, you can't really dog on them too much for that. And then also the CGI was excellent for the time. See if you compare it to movies that were coming out around that time, like Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire one. If you look at the CGI in that compared to this, it's amazing how much better these movies are. So it is a great movie. Just because I don't come back to it as often as others, that's why I placed it so low on the list.
Yeah, it's a bit like when I start a reread of the series. I start doing Philosopher's Stone, but you do get not bored, but because it is so much set up, it is a bit harder to get through at times. Something you mentioned about the actors was quite interesting. One, how cool would it have been to be like 11 years old and then told you're going to play Harry Potter? That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I know.
But also, I don't know if you watched the New Year special on Sky.
Yeah, I did.
Obviously, Daniel Radcliffe talks a lot about how Gary Oldman played a huge part in his development as an actor. So that's something that's obviously helped him develop as time went on.
Yeah. It's really cool how not only do you kind of watch them grow up, but you also watch them grow as actors. Especially Daniel Radcliffe. I think he went from being probably the worst to the best. Also, something that I noticed as well, because I rewatched The Philosopher's Stone this morning, because I plan to do a movie marathon because I'm injured at the moment from work, so kind of laying in bed. And see the guy that plays Dudley, he was probably the best child actor in that movie. He was really, really good. Like
He kind of
the rest of
disappeared
them,
after a while.
yeah, I know. I thought that was interesting. I thought he did a really, really good job as a child actor, and the other guys kind of, like I said, they didn't struggle, but they were noticeably like needed a bit of work. But yeah, you can see, especially Daniel Radcliffe, who's probably the worst of the three in this movie at acting, go from like to become a really, really good actor.
It's nice to see. Seems like a nice young man as well.
Yeah.
Wait, my fifth, six. What were we on about? Six.
Number six.
Yeah, six. I went for Deathly Hallows Part 1, and it's not that I dislike it. I actually really enjoy it, and I think all the the bit they did, the kind of animation of the Tale of the Three Brothers.
Yeah.
And the stuff at Malfoy's Manor. Dobby's death is done really well. I really enjoyed the film. I just feel like it suffers because it just ends. It's not the movie's fault, but it ends midway through the book. So it doesn't have that kind of completion and that kind of that feeling you get when you finish a story.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy it.
Yeah, that's understandable.
There was a wee bit too much running about the forest. That got a wee bit repetitive, but that was the same in the book as well.
That could maybe again come down to maybe dragging it out a little bit, but I really like that movie as well. Obviously, I'll come into my thoughts on it later, but I thought that was again a kind of personal preference for me. I just really liked. There was a lot of good character moments I thought in that movie.
Yeah. So fifth position, I think we maybe missed it, just the last one there, but just we'll share our fifths at the same time. What was your fifth position?
Fifth for me was actually the one you were just talking about, so that works out quite well. Deathly Hallows Part 1. What about you?
This is one of probably the start of a few that were quite difficult to place. I went for Goblet of Fire in fifth position.
Nice.
So, do you want to talk about Deathly Hallows Part 1, and then I can mention my
that might be quite a cohesive way to do it, since you were just talking about it.
Yeah.
So, what I think is really good about this movie is, like, you really feel like they are in the middle of a wizarding war in this one, because the tone is really quite dark. One thing that I thought was quite silly is, like, they obviously, and I think it was Half-Blood Prince, you said that the Burrow got attacked, and then the next movie, they're like, oh my god, we're in a war. We'll just have this really public wedding right outside the place that just got attacked in the last movie. Like, it was quite silly. But I do think they nailed the tone apart from that. And I think I actually said, like I said, I actually thought this was a good example of splitting a book into two movies. Just because I thought the fact that it was drawn out, it really helped to develop the plot, and there's good character moments. I really like the scene with Harry and Hermione awkwardly dancing when Ron leaves for a bit.
Yeah.
And obviously there's some really great action sequences. Dobby's death hits really hard, like you said. And I like, because that's done so well, I actually don't mind him in this movie. And one criticism I would have of this movie is Peter Pettigrew again is quite an important character in the books and in Harry Potter in general. And the way he's kind of written out the story, the last time you see him, he just gets knocked in the back of the head, and that's it. Whereas in the books, they've got quite a cool death scene for him, where I think that hand that Voldemort made for him, like, chokes him.
Yeah, because he was
like,
going to
I thought that
him. Was it not because he showed Harry mercy?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly. I just remember when I was doing my research today that that was the case. But I thought that was really disappointing, the way that he just kind of disappears. But it was really, really, really fun. Like, a lot of good character moments, like I said, and there's some good action sequences as well. But
I think it's an underrated movie.
100%, and I can understand why people would overlook it, because Deathly Hallows Part 2 is the big finale. So I think everyone was kind of like a bit like, I just really want to see this play out. But I really enjoyed that movie as well. A lot of cool character stuff, like I said.
Just before I got to Goblet of Fire, there's one bit from that film that's just came back to my mind, and this obviously happens when you're discussing it. I really liked when they went
Mhm.
undercover as the Ministry employees, and you see Umbridge again.
Yeah, that's right. I actually had that written down. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah,
And was that did they have the break into Gringotts in that movie as well, or
that's
was
the
that
start of the
part two?
second one.
Ah,
That's
right,
the start
okay,
of part
aye.
two.
But
Two,
I do quite
two,
like
two
that
fun
sequence as
facts
well.
about that Ministry scene. One,
Mhm.
the employee that Hermione replaces with Polyjuice.
Mhm.
She's the Ministry employee that sends Harry the Howler in Order of the Phoenix, Mafalda Hopkirk.
Oh yeah,
And the
awesome.
other thing is the guy that Ron replaces is the actor
Mhm.
that's Dave coaches in Gavin and Stacey. I don't know if you've seen Gavin and Stacey,
Aye.
but that's Dave
Yeah, I
coaches.
love Gavin and Stacey. Yeah. Aye.
Did
I
you know
love
that was
that.
him? Yeah.
Oi, Dave. Yeah, I knew that
Aye.
was him. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought
Aye.
that was quite a
I
nice
quite like
wee
the scene as well
find.
when Ron, I think, is kissing the real Mafalda Hopkirk, and then he changes back into himself.
Yeah.
I can't remember. He says
No,
something after it, but it's
It
quite
wasn't
funny.
Mafalda Hopkirk. It was a couple. Remember, it was a woman that was in the court who was getting
Uh huh.
prosecuted for being a Muggle born.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't think it was the Mafalda character.
Uh huh. I think she just looks quite similar to the actress that played her, because I
Yeah,
think I can see Mafalda Hopkirk in my mind now. But I know I thought
yeah.
that was quite a funny moment in that build up as well.
So Goblet of Fire, I won't. We also spoke about it. Won't spend too long on it. Basically, just
Yeah.
I actually love it as a film. I'm weird. No, I'm not weird,
Mhm.
but I am weird. But I like films where you can sit and it's raining outside. I think Goblet of Fire is a great film to watch when it's raining because you've got the
Yeah.
horrible weather throughout. You've got Mad Eye appearing when it's thunder and lightning, all that kind of stuff. I
Yeah.
liked I liked Brendan Gleeson's performance. If I'm being honest,
Uh huh.
I liked a lot of the film. I just think it does, as you said, take away so much from the book, like Barty Crouch Senior's story, Barty Crouch Junior's story, Winky the house elf's not in it at all, and also
Yeah.
Ludo Bagman, who's another good character from the books, he's also not in it at all. So they
Yeah.
took so much out of it. I think there was rumours they were going to make that two films at one point. I think that
Uh
could
huh.
have been good, but I don't think that would have made sense
Yeah.
for the fourth film in a series.
Uh huh. Yeah, that would have been strange.
Yeah.
But aye.
Right.
So we're at number three now.
Four, four.
Oh, four. So we are right. Aye, that's
Yeah.
right. So, my number four, was the Half Blood Prince actually.
Okay.
So this is, like I said, I can totally understand people's gripes with this movie. I just think that it has a lot of good character moments in it for me, and I just really enjoy it, despite its shortcomings in terms of compared to the book. There was one really silly plot point in this movie, which is Dumbledore's plan to get Horace Slughorn to divulge information about the Horcruxes is really, really flimsy, because it's all based on Harry being good at potions,
Yeah.
which Harry's never been the best student anyway, and potions
Uh-huh.
is like his worst subject. So, like by the biggest stroke of luck imaginable, he manages to fight and beat Ron to this special potions book that is Snape's potions book that grants him to be amazing at it. So, I mean, it's still fun. I just thought that was really, really silly. But apart from that, I really love Jim Broadbent as Horace Slughorn. I think he's a great actor. I also love, like you said, Ron with oh, what's the character's name again? The relationship they have.
Lavender Brown.
Lavender Brown. Yeah, I think that's quite funny. And I also like the moment as well when he's like knocked out, and then Hermione comes and
Yeah.
he says Hermione's name instead of Lavender. Like, I quite like that moment. I like the scenes with Ron with Quidditch as well. When he thinks he's taken the liquid luck and he does amazing in the trial, and then it turns out it was just him playing himself. I really
That's
like
quite a
that.
good message for real life, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And how strong placebo is, because it is a really, really strong thing. The moment, I think this is the movie where Dumbledore and Harry go to get the locket, isn't it? And it turns out to be the
Yeah.
fake one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing scene. There was good character development for Draco, who I think actually really gets neglected throughout all these movies.
Oh, Tom
And
Felton's
also,
a legend.
yeah, Also, it creates good doubt about Snape, obviously, for like future twists regarding him. And also there was one other scene that I see as well, the scenes with him when they're doing the occlumency, and
Mm-hmm.
Harry comes back and sees in Snape's mind, and it shows how nasty Sirius and especially
That was
James
Order of
were
the Phoenix, by the way.
was that Order of the Phoenix? Oh
Yeah.
man, right, okay. I seem to remember that as being this movie, but regardless, anyway, that moment I thought was really cool because it kind of shows Harry that his dad was not perfect.
Yeah.
But aye, so did I mention the scene with Harry, Hagrid, and Slughorn as well when Harry does take the liquid luck? I really
Yeah,
like
with
those bits
the
as well.
spider.
Yeah, I really like that
funeral.
part of the movie as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was a fun bit. So
That,
it was just like a lot of fun character moments that I personally really liked, but I can totally understand people's gripes with it.
talking about changing perceptions, you actually made me think of a lot of things that were good about it, but I think just the Burrow fire, taking away the big fight scene. We won't go into massive detail, but Ginny and Harry's relationship in the films was very poor and was a very strong
Yeah,
part of the Half Blood Prince book.
yeah. I think in general, all the romantic connections were not done well in the movies. Like even Ron and Hermione's, I don't think. Like when I watch the movies, I actually see Hermione and Harry as a better couple than Harry and
Yeah,
Ron and Hermione.
I think that's quite a
I,
common take.
yeah, so it's a bit of a letdown because I think I mentioned that about Order of the Phoenix, but we'll come on to that. Kind of similar things, but yeah,
So my fourth was Philosopher's Stone, and
awesome.
just it's the entry point. It's just the wonder. It's just that feeling.
Hmm.
I think even now, if we were given at whatever age we're at, if you were given the opportunity
Hmm.
to go to Hogwarts tomorrow, you would.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
I loved the feel of the older films more. I loved
Yeah.
I thought they were just nice and cozy. They were like kind of Christmas films you could watch.
Hmm.
They were brighter, like just
Hmm.
visually, and I don't know. It's just like a warm, cozy blanket. Philosopher's Stone. It's just
Yeah.
one of those films. I don't think you could ever. I think that'll be watched forever. As Hagrid says, as Robbie Coltrane says, he'll be dead in however many years, but Hagrid will live forever. It's just one of those things that'll just keep going on and on.
Yeah. It's timeless classic, and
Makes
like
me
it's just
emotional thinking about it.
yeah, and the tone is just perfect in the first two movies. In fact, the first three movies, I would say the tone. In fact, in general, I think Harry Potter is really good with tone when you think about it. I know you don't really like the darker tone of the later movies, but I do think the later movies do require a bit of a darker tone, and I do
Yeah, I just
think,
think they maybe went a wee
especially
bit
Harry
too.
Potter, the first.
I feel they maybe went a wee bit too far in that direction. It just like
Yeah,
there wasn't like it wasn't that dark in the books. When you read the books, there
uh,
was still a lot more like lighter hearted things going on.
yeah, I get that.
Okay, so we're into the last three now. What's
Sweet.
your third last?
So my third last is the Order of the Phoenix.
Oh, our first
Um,
tie.
oh, is it awesome? I think this is a movie that's quite commonly not that popular, surprisingly, but I love this movie. I think it's really good.
Definitely one of the
The
best, obviously.
Aye, it has. So this is good. We can kind of talk about this together. And I think this podcast has dragged on a little bit because most of our placements are so different, which is good.
Yeah.
It's like we've had so much
When we
to
did
say
the
whenever we
Boba
have a
Fett
placement.
when we did the Boba Fett one, we had a fair few ties actually, so it might just depend
Yeah, I think
on
that
what you
one
get.
was quite an easy an easy series to place, to be fair, the way that it went. But
Yeah.
um, this one. So yeah, basically we'll go. I think it just has a lot of fun moments for me. One thing that I really like is them coming out of Hogwarts, because as much as Hogwarts is awesome, I do think that the Wizarding World in general is really great, and I don't know if they spend enough time outside of Hogwarts for me in these books. It's nice to see more of the Wizarding World, so
Yeah.
they spend a lot of time in different places in this movie. There's probably the best character development for Harry, I would say, comes in this movie, with him becoming the Defense Against Dark Arts teacher in Secret. I love his speech, and is it? I can't remember the name of the place. It's not the Three Broomsticks, isn't it? That's in London. The place in Hogsmeade.
The Hog's Head.
Is that it? Yeah.
It's
So
where
his speech in there when he
Aberforth.
says,
It's where Dumbledore's brother is the barman.
yeah. I just love that speech that he has where he's like, out there it's not the same as when you're doing it in the classroom. Like, and all these things sound great when you say them, but it's not. I really like that speech. Sirius's death is done really well. The only thing I can think of is obviously when we're talking about romance. Show's romance I thought was really unconvincing. Like, I just didn't really feel chemistry with them much. Neville, I think the whole thing that was built up with him and Bellatrix, I think they really should have had some sort of face-off in the movies at some point. Because that Bellatrix was like Neville's Voldemort. And just to top it off as well, Umbridge was such a good, well-done villain because they did the two things that really give you a compelling villain is they make you hate her. And I mean, a lot of people say they hate Umbridge more than they hate Voldemort. And also, she just kind of seems invincible, and that makes it really compelling when you're watching a story. And it's like, how the hell are they going to get rid of her? Like, she's so powerful in terms of just the influence she's got and the political power she's got. I just thought that was really well done, and the whole Ministry of Magic scene at the end I just thought was so good. But what about you?
Yeah, I really liked the scene in the Department of Mysteries with all the orbs. Voldemort and Dumbledore's duel was really cool because it wasn't more magic. They were like playing with like fire and water and like all the elements, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it was so creative compared to like I'm gonna reference this guy again, the Cosmic Black Hour. When I was watching him, he says that it's basically like you've got the bad guy green laser and the good guy red laser, and they just kind of hit each other. Like whereas with that one, and there was no sound as well. Like, it was just it was so cool.
It was very creative. I also think they nailed the humor in this film, and I think making Filch a bit more of a humorous character rather than like an antagonist was a good idea. I think him and Umbridge kind of played really well off each other, and the kind of sequences when they're putting up all the rules on the wall, I thought that was all really well done.
Yeah, it's just a really fun movie for me. Like, I just have so much fun when I watch that.
I kind of want to watch it now that I've mentioned it.
Right,
well, we got onto our second last one then.
Yes. So the good thing is, because we are kind of starting to get a little bit stretched for time now, there's not a lot I can say about this one really, because for me, now that you've mentioned the things that you've mentioned, it maybe dampens it for me a little bit. But Deathly Hallows Part 2, I just think it's a good epic conclusion. It's a really, it's more like, it was really satisfying for me for the most part, because I just had a lot of fun with it. Like, I thought the moment where Harry comes back to life was so epic, and I think what was done really well was the moment when he gets the resurrection stone and he gets to see his mum and dad and all that, and he talks to them before he goes to see Voldemort, and the scene in the train station when Harry's kind of like, sort of in the purgatory state. I love that scene. And Dumbledore saying words are the most inexhaustible form of magic. I love that line. The scene as well with Snape's memories. I absolutely love that. That's one of my favourite moments in all the Harry Potter movies. And when he shows his Patronus and it's a doe the same as Lily, and he says always, like, that gets me in the feels every single time.
You're making me feel bad because all this stuff's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but just the things I didn't like stand out in my mind. But I guess this has been a good podcast for making us think of the things we do like and the films we maybe don't like as much.
Aye. Yeah, I think we've both kind of had little moments where we're like, actually, you know what, I agree with you there, which has been good. But I was like, this can go one or two ways, where we like agree a lot, or we can just like totally fight each other. But it's even though our placements are so different, we've kind of, I think it's because, like I said, it's like, say if it was Star Wars, for example, that's such a more contentious thing, where it's got more potential for that. But with Harry Potter, like I said, it's just so solid. Like any of the movies, even the ones that I don't like as much, I can still enjoy.
Yeah, but we definitely need to do a Star Wars movie ranking at some point then.
Aye, yeah, I think that would be good, because I've got a lot of hot takes when it comes to Star Wars. But
Matt,
there was one other little thing. Sorry, is the way that Voldemort dies in this one. I think is done so much better in the book. Like the way he just kind of falls to the ground because he was so desperate to be immortal and different from everyone else, and at the end he just dies like any man. I just thought that was so much better in the movie. But
I
what was your
definitely,
number two then?
I definitely agree. My number two, which by process of elimination is your number one, Prisoner of Azkaban.
Ah, nice.
It's one of those ones that a lot of the people like. I don't personally think the things they take out from the book ruin the film, but I can understand people who haven't read the books might not understand a lot of the Marauders plot. But I just very quick, what I love the tone in this one. I like the darkness in this one. I think the Dementors are amazing.
Yeah.
I like the whole kind of, although it's a controversial one, I do like the time travel and going back and saving Sirius. I think Emma Thompson's amazing as Trelawney.
Yeah.
I like the whole mystery about who Sirius Black is and the kind of unraveling of the story, and the scene in the Shrieking Shack with Snape, Lupin, Sirius. I think that's, even though they miss out key information from the book, I think is amazing.
Yeah, that scene is so good. Like all three of them are just doing such a good job in that moment. Like that's one thing I highlighted as well was that scene. I was about to start going on about Prisoner of Azkaban there myself.
We'll just hang off. We'll just hang off on that one, and we'll just kind of tie the last two together.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So your first place is obviously Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything at the start because I like it just to be totally, people get to share their opinions, and that's how we do the rankings. My first place is your last place.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And there's a few things. I'm not saying it's like the best book or the best film. I've just always absolutely adored The Chamber of Secrets, and I think it comes down to just one thing. I absolutely love a murder mystery story.
Yeah.
And see just the mystery and the unraveling and the clues, and I think this book/film also brings in a lot of things you spoke about, like the kind of the racism in the wizarding world. It brings in amazing characters like Lucius Malfoy, who's one of my absolute favourites. Lockhart does really well. Young Tom Riddle, you don't suspect him at all when you first read it or watch it, I would say. I like that version of Tom Riddle. He's probably my favourite version of Tom Riddle, like when he's younger. And I love just the wee details, like Ron, in the books they have to go and clean the trophy room, and Ron throws the slugs up on the special award for services to the school that had Tom Riddle's name on it. There's the Ginny looking really sad all the time, and like acting a bit like Dobby is how they described her, and obviously that's just, and they actually mention throughout the book that Ginny looks unwell or Ginny's not settling in well to school, and there's just, I love foreshadowing. I mentioned this in the Shining review we did. I just love foreshadowing and murder mystery like that. I've always loved Chamber of Secrets, and I know quite a few people that do.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like I enjoy all of these movies. I just like because I can just switch my brain off when I watch Harry Potter and just like, this is great. But see, if you do start to dissect some plot points for that, just for me, I just feel like that one's the most insane. But a lot of the things that I was nitpicking at were pretty silly. Like,
that's the book, though. That it wasn't the film that made a lot of those things up. It was the plot from the book that just carried on forward.
Yeah. But that's just personally for me. Like, if I had to like rank one the lowest, that was just for me. But like I said, I still enjoy all the Harry Potter movies, so I can still just watch that and enjoy it. And like I said, I love the scene at the end in the Chamber of Secrets. It's such a cool fight scene at the end.
Did you want to add anything just about Prisoner of Azkaban before we tie up?
I just love that movie. It's like, see, when I was saying about J.K. Rowling either nailing a plot or just totally making it way too complicated, I think in this one she managed to make it complicated and make it brilliant. Like, the time travel stuff is always shaky territory, but it's probably the best I've seen it done in a movie. The closest probably was Endgame. They've done it really well, but I love the way they do the time travel. I think the tone shift is perfect. It's not too dark, but it's still got the kind of like childish wonder to it, but it's a bit darker. Again, the acting gets better from the kids, and the adults are incredible. The only one silly thing that gets brought up a lot is the plot hole surrounding the Marauders map and Peter Pettigrew. Like, how did Fred and George not notice that Ron was sleeping next to a man called Peter Pettigrew every night? That is quite
funny,
a common one. Yeah, I know, but that's just one where you're like, it's just a silly thing. But yeah, I just think for me that's like the perfect Harry Potter movie. It's got everything. It's like right, like how you said they kind of taper off a bit as they go on. Like I do have some of the later ones at the top for me, but I feel like number 3 is just peak Harry Potter for me. It's just right in the perfect sweet spot.
Yeah. Well, that is us ranked the Harry Potter movies, and I think it shows. Obviously, we didn't really set a time for this, but I think it shows how much we both love the films. That there was so much to discuss there. I think if we weren't conscious of time, I think we probably could have done that for maybe 3 hours or something, just discussing it.
Yeah.
So just before we do our usual shameless plugs and updates at the end, Strachan is also started up his own podcast, and he just wanted the opportunity just to tell some of our listeners about it.
Yeah, so thank you, Colin, for giving me this opportunity, or I should say I'm grateful. Gratitude's a big theme of the podcast that I've started. We've not released it yet, although actually by the time this comes out, it will be out. It's out on the 28th of February, the first episode. But basically the podcast just revolves around my journey with dyspraxia, and my journey through depression and anxiety, and trying my best to live a happy life. You can find us at Strachan's Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and if there's any other ones, I'm probably on there too. And finally as well, I'm doing a weight loss journey on TikTok on my own personal account. It's under Strack Talk. If you want to follow me on there too, you can. But yeah, that's it basically. Have a look for us on the internet, and if you like it, stick around. I'd love that.
And he's not paying us to plug that on here. So it's a shame that Paul couldn't join us this week. Hopefully in the future he'll be able to get his flu network correct and join us. So just to finish off, just to say that this was a Seismic Cinema podcast, the first of a lot of ranking videos that we're going to do. You'll find us on Facebook. We've now got 250 followers because I worked out how to share it with people. We're on Twitter. We're approaching 200 followers. We're on Instagram. We are on, it's quite hard to remember once you get into it. We have a YouTube account where we've been posting our podcast, and you'll also find our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Good Pods, and I've probably missed one, but that'll just about cover it. The next week, we obviously just did a review of The Shining previously, which you should check out. We're going to look at Doctor Sleep, which I've not seen. We're going to review that, and it's Paul's turn to pick what we're going to be ranking next week, so I can only dread to think what that's going to be. But just to finish off, Strachan, did you enjoy your debut on Seismic Cinema, and is it something you would be interested in doing again?
I definitely would be interested in doing that again. I had a great time. I'm a massive nerd myself, so I just love nerding out for a bit. And it was nice to catch up with you properly as well, because with everything that's been going on in the world, I've not really had a chance to talk to you or Paul at length in a long time, so I was sad that Paul didn't make it. That also as well, just very quickly, I am on YouTube as well at Strachan's Podcast.
You've had your moment there. Nah, it's true. I've not seen you since you disappeared on your birthday, but I think it has brought me, you, and Paul, and the three of us kind of together, and that's another big bonus of this. So just before we sign off, we question for you, Strachan. We like to get our visitors to remind us what our slogan is here at Seismic Cinema, and just to share it with the listeners.
Yes, well, the slogan for you guys is the power of escapism, or maybe better fitted for this episode, the magic of escapism.
Oh, I like that.
Harry Potter's magic.
And just as obviously a friend and now a kind of guest on the channel, what's your view on the escapism and how that impacts people's lives? Obviously, come from the mental health point of view.
Yeah, I think it's great. What one big theme for me on my podcast is I've found that one of the best things for mental health is to do things, get stuck into things, get involved with things. For me, nerdy stuff, video games, TV, music, movies, everything, like that's how I get a lot of my enjoyment. So, yeah, I think we would be lost without it as well. So we've had a lot of great escapism tonight. There was a great result in the football tonight for
Yep.
us Rangers fans, and had lots of fun doing this podcast as well. So I totally love the theme you've got going on.
Cool. And you two, we're looking forward to hearing your first video on Monday. So that was Seismic Cinema.
Thank you.
We'll be back with you next week.
Cheers for having me.